I work for the UK Trade Investment in Brazil, and I'm responsible for the education sector. Our role is to assist UK companies entering the Brazilian market, which can be, it's an interesting market, albeit slightly challenging. So our role is to explain the market to you and help you to find the best potential partner in the country. So, well, in this occasion here in BET, we came with a Brazilian buyer, and we know there are several Brazilian companies in the pavilion explaining about the product and also willing to hear more about what the UK has to offer in education. I think this is an overview of what I intend to explain a little bit more during the session about the Brazilian system, what are the differences and the potential numbers for suppliers, and what would be some of the key challenges and ways around it. So.
Okay, great. And also, Ahsah, do you want to explain a bit about what you do and what you do at Chango and Maniaco as well?
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Ahsah Vazquez from Mexico City. I work for Chango Maniaco. Chango Maniaco is part of a group of 5 companies, and we all sell educational technology in Mexico. We had an exclusivity for Smart for a long time, and we have lots of products. Now we have software, hardware, labs, digital libraries. We sell pretty much everything. My role is to analyze all the products we sell, translate the use of them to teachers, train teachers, and really give all my point of view if it would work for teachers, for schools, and give all the information for public bids. We have a lot of public bids with the government, and basically that's my role, and training teachers, no?
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And just to kick off everything, can you just explain about maybe perhaps you first, Vera, the Brazilian market and the kind of educational landscape for companies?
Okay. Well, first, I think I was explain a little bit about the size of Brazil in terms of numbers of students. Currently, we are 200 million people in the country, of which 50 million are during the K-12 studies. They are from 0 to 18 years old and going to schools. So right now we have around 50 million students. Most of those are going to the public system in Brazil, going to the public schools. So around 18% only go to private schools. So the public system in Brazil has 41 million students in all over states. The education in Brazil is organized between primary, from 6 to 10 years old. The secondary is from 11 till 15. And from 16 to 18 years old, the students go to what would be our high school. The primary education is responsibility of the local authority, the municipalities. The secondary and high school levels are for the state government. And the universities, the higher education, is split between the central government, what we call the federal government, and the states. So overall, what we see is that we have several instances controlling education in Brazil, which can be a bit confusing at first and has a strong impact in how the budget is split between the federation and also how government purchases are done. So the public system has 41 million students. Most of those students, they would spend 12 years in school, of which 4 to 5 years would be studying English. English is part of the curricula in Brazil, of the mandatory curricula, starting when they are 12 years old. However, the teaching of English in Brazil is another challenge, because even though it's been part of the curricula for many decades now, only 3% of Brazilians speak English. And of those 3%, it's still argued that around 1% would be considered fluent speakers. The rest would be some certain level, like advanced or intermediary English. Brazilian market as a whole for ELT has a challenge in that there are many suppliers. If you go to Brazil, you'll see several options of ELT schools, lots of English content, but at the same time, the quality is something that's debatable. Most of the suppliers are Brazilian companies. Several of them are still family-owned, And there are a few key UK suppliers working in the market, mostly in the published sector. So we have Oxford Press, Cambridge, we have Pearson in Brazil active for the past several years, and we have Macmillan also very strong in Brazil. So for the ELT sector, the challenge is not so much about the idea that there isn't a demand. There's a strong demand in the country, but the competition is very high when you compete with a low price level and not necessarily the best quality around. When it comes to technology in Brazil, the biggest market for technology would be the public system. However, the way it's structured nowadays, you have to participate in tenders, which is something that we can discuss a little bit afterwards in details of what would be the key requirements. So mostly when someone wants to export to Brazil, they work with a partner, and most of the clients, the highest amount of technology that you're going to find in schoolroom in Brazil is with the private schools. So the private schools, they are huge clients for technology and education in Brazil. From hardware, software, distance learning, they would be some of the key customers you would have in country. The public system is a huge client for parts of that, but then you would need to always probably work with the Brazilian contact. You wouldn't work directly with the Brazilian government. And for distance learning, Brazil is an increasing market for distance learning. It's actually one of the things that changed more in the last 10 years. Most Brazilians, they have access to internet. When it comes to pupils in schools, 80% of the students have access to internet, either with a tablet or a mobile phone. And most of the teachers have access to internet. Around 70% of the teachers, they use internet regularly. They use internet systems, they use internet basics to plan class. However, even though most of the schools have access to internet, they don't use it in the classroom. They use it for planning, to manage the facility, to manage the staff. They don't use it as a teaching tool, not when it comes to the biggest part of the market.
And how does that compare with in Mexico? Is it similar?
It's copy-paste. It's very similar. We're also divided into public and private sector, and as Vera was saying, it's the same. We also have budget from the federal government, state government, local government, and now even schools have their own budget. They're told where to spend it, but that's how it's controlled, okay? And how it has been, in Mexico there has been an increase in the introduction of technology in both private and public sector. In the public sector, for example, since 2000, with President Fox, he had a very big program where he equipped, well, not he, but his government equipped classrooms with projectors, interactive boards, a desk for the teacher, and it was called Enciclomedia. No, that was a project at that time. The following president, 6 years later, Calderón, he had another project to include technology, which was called HDT, Habilidades Digitales para Todos, digital skills for everyone, and it was the same as the one before for primary school, but with a wireless network in the schools, okay? And now we have a very big program with this president. In 2013, they're delivering tablets to 700,000 students in 5th and 6th grade in primary school, okay? So those tablets have been, part of them have been Android and part of them have been Windows-based, so that's some information for people. And in the private sector, many schools adopted a program, 1,000 schools adopted a program where they bought iPads, no? So we have like a range of information. The problem in Mexico is connectivity. Like, not everybody has good access to internet, no? Obviously, big cities have very good access. Other cities, not that much. And we have a lot of areas where we don't have internet access. So that's something to think about when we're implementing something about technology. About English learning, It's something that it's a boom in Mexico. And our company actually has business partners, UK business partners, that encourage English learning and teaching. And now we're trying to focus more on English, on teaching English teachers English, because they don't speak English, okay? So there's a good opportunity, and obviously the best way to reach so many teachers would be through technology, or a blended kind of system, where 80,000 teachers, we lack 80,000 English teachers in Mexico, So there's an opportunity for everyone.
And do you think the way forward to do that is to kind of invest money in English platforms, and how can British companies make the most of this?
Exactly. I mean, we have business partners here, and the way to go is thinking about connectivity. If whatever you're designing runs all the time on the internet, then it won't be something that will sell. But if it only needs a little bit of internet just to send data to an LMS or whatever, then probably it would sell. But if it's local, or if you can have a local network, or if you can have an app or a tablet where really you don't need internet, then that would be even better, And having that for children, for example, would be amazing, because if we don't have English teachers, then the children will benefit from at least learning from a device,
Yeah. And is that the same in Brazil as well? In terms of compatibility, in terms of technology and connectivity?
Yes, as she said, it would be copy and paste. Brazil, the internet, it's a huge problem, because several states in Brazil, they have ambitions of implementing education technology in the classroom. They have ambitions to have more of a bilingual program using technology. However, they always get stuck in the problem of internet connection. If you go to the big cities, yes, there is internet, but even in the big cities, if you go to a public school, for instance, the public school might have internet for basic things, but they won't have Wi-Fi or anything that could be actually used by the students. So this is still very restricted. There are plans to change it, and there are states in Brazil that are actually talking about implementing private-public partnerships to implement internet in the schools, and one of the big things now is discussing how it could be implemented. But right now, if you want to start Brazil in a large scale, distance learning is good, softwares are good, but you need to have at least not demand so much internet access and have a few options offline. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it would be more challenging.
Yeah, and just in terms of working with people, going back to Ahsah, I mean, you are looking for kind of new products to buy. What are you looking for in the products right now?
Right now, we're looking for products that are standalone, no internet access, that products that will help teachers' professional development, because that's something that we're looking for, and probably some admin systems for school. Maybe that is something that would sell. We don't have some information management systems in all schools, and I think that is something that there's a big opportunity. We can reduce a lot of teaching and time and planning time if we had everything in a system. So basically, I think that's what we're looking for.
Okay. And also in Brazil, kind of how do, in terms of British companies entering Brazil, what kind of entry routes would you advise kind of entering? I know imports tax into Brazil is very high at the moment, and there is kind of like loads of concern about that, but how are there ways to overcome that? Well,
I think it's a tricky question, because it depends a lot on the type of product you have. Yes, the import duties, they can be quite high depending on the product, but at the same time, in some cases I would say, okay, one option might be to produce in Brazil, at least part of that in Brazil, with a Brazilian partner. But depending on the case, it's also expensive to produce it in Brazil, because there are several items that we import and not necessarily, especially now with the dollar and the pound being a bit higher for us, it wouldn't necessarily be cheap. So sometimes import, at least initially, is an option. And depending if it's a content, yes, licensing the content for local providers, it's a very used option, especially working with publishers in Brazil. If the company has an ambition to provide in large scale to Brazil, to become a government supplier, definitely we need to do some sort of partnership with the Brazilian company, either through licensing content or producing in Brazil, or having the Brazilian company be the spokesperson, be the representative for the UK company in Brazil, because otherwise it would be impossible to enter it as for the rules. But the most important in Brazil, I think, when considering is that it's not a market that you go once and into business. It requires commitment. Brazil is a medium to long-term market, so it requires that you build a relationship and build an investment in terms of time and kind of insistence in going there and actually getting to know a little bit more about the particularities of the market, because it's worth it, but it shows the results on medium term. So independently of the choice, it requires more commitment than maybe some easier access markets, put it this way.
Yeah. And what about Ahsah for you? You've worked with UK companies before. How do you guys work together normally?
Well, we work together fine, but you really, really have to understand Mexican way of thinking, Mexican market. I was telling Melissa before, it's not a matter of, okay, I offer it, and they say yes, and they sign it the next day. No, it's a matter of going back and forth 3, 4, 5, 6 times, months, probably sometimes years. But once they open the door, it's a really, really kind market, no? But that work, for British companies, they have to be super patient, flexible also, because most of our customers are government. So what we do is we need you to be flexible in adapting some of the material. If it's content, the content. If it's app software, also adapting it to our needs. No, so basically, I think that's what I would do.
Okay. And just before we throw questions out to the floor, just each of you, what advice would you give to kind of British companies looking to enter the Latin American market? Do you want to go first, Vera?
Well, I'd say think about your product. I think one mistake that some UK companies do is that they recognize their quality and they focus on the whole portfolio. But when coming to a market like Brazil, where you have a high competition, where it's not easy to promote, you should focus on what's your main selling point. If you have a portfolio of products, which one do you think this is the one I can sell and that there is no competition around it? Because you cannot be good in everything, and Brazil is not easy, and your product most likely won't be cheap in Brazil. So we don't need something that you can offer and other 10 companies will offer. We need something that you offer, other companies offer, but yours is best, and why is the best one. So I think when coming to Brazil, you need to be very focused about what you're selling, why you're selling it, and what Brazil has to gain on that. And I think this approach, and as I say, coming again and again is the best thing for you to have the focus and the patience.
And Ahsah, what advice would you give to British companies?
I think that the same as Vera was saying, and obviously come and visit us. Come and be with us, visiting clients, schools, getting to know us really, how the market works, how education works, how everything works. And probably I would say that you also have to have a marketing strategy where you know all your free competitors, because we've tried to access, we were just saying, some English teaching software. And it might be amazing, but if a teacher found one that was free, that was it. It doesn't matter if yours is amazing, wow, super duper. If that one was free, it really does drop all the sales. So maybe also find out what's out there in the market and thinking about free things, because obviously, as she was saying, right now the exchange rate is ridiculously awful for us, so everything is becoming expensive, So also think about that, Think about what are other people offering and what can I offer and how can I adapt to their needs and their prices and their everything, you know? So I would say that's it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.